street thug Mitchell had just finished his prison sentence. Today, as he stepped out of prison, he saw his close friend Billy waiting with a beaming smile. There seemed to be some deep grudge between the two. Billy didn't say much. He took Mitchell directly to an apartment. He said the previous owner owed money to his boss's loan sharks and couldn't pay, so he had to hand over the apartment. Mitchell could stay there. Billy spoke while handing Mitchell a switchblade as a means of self-defense, but Mitchell clearly didn't care about such things. He took out a stack of cash hidden in a book earlier and went to find his homeless friend, Old Man Joe. Mitchell gave him some money, hoping he would live well. On the way, Mitchell suddenly noticed two thugs sneaking toward a woman preparing to withdraw money. He immediately understood they planned to rob her. So, openly and rightfully, with just one shout, Mitchell scared the two thugs into running away. Mitchell also turned and left, hiding the fierce aura that terrified the thugs, because he was a legendary figure in this area. To celebrate Mitchell's release, everyone threw a lavish party for him at a bar. Amidst the fun, Mitchell realized the woman withdrawing money earlier was also there. He couldn't help but be curious about her. But immediately after, a friend suddenly reminded Mitchell that his younger sister, Bryony, was in the basement with some guy. Hearing this, Mitchell immediately flew into a rage. He knew exactly what kind of person his sister was. Rushing down to the basement, he saw Bryony acting intimately with a thug. Seeing Mitchell storm in aggressively, the thug pulled out a gun. Mitchell didn't bother talking nonsense. One punch sent him to sleep like a baby. He then dragged Bryony away without a word. The woman from earlier saw this and followed them out of the bar. Waiting for Mitchell to put Bryony in a taxi, the woman proactively approached to borrow a light, incidentally asking if he was a criminal. Mitchell didn't hide it, saying he intended to go straight and find a decent job. This interested the woman greatly. She mentioned she had a friend who was a retired star, currently looking for a bodyguard to look after her life. But Mitchell didn't agree immediately because his intuition told him this wasn't simple. Parting ways with the woman, Mitchell went to find Old Man Joe resting under a bridge. Unexpectedly, Joe took out a gun, saying he found it in a box on the roadside. Mitchell was startled and hurriedly took the gun, giving the switchblade to Old Man Joe for self-defense. He didn't know that this decision would completely change Joe's fate. Early the next morning, Mitchell followed the address provided by the woman to a small house. He discovered a paparazzo standing opposite, trying to take sneak photos, but Mitchell ignored him. He entered the yard and knocked. A slovenly man walked out. Upon learning Mitchell's intent, the man told him to enter through the side door below to avoid being photographed and written about falsely by the paparazzi. This made Mitchell even more curious. Just how big of a star was this to be so careful? Waiting until he passed through the side door into the house, he finally saw the person he needed to protect, Charlotte. Unlike her radiant image on posters, the real-life Charlotte was sorrowful and timid, her face showing clear fatigue. She asked Mitchell directly why he went to prison. Mitchell answered honestly, because of a moment of impulsiveness, a dispute arose with someone. However, he also assured Charlotte that his motto was, "If people don't bother me, I won't bother them." He would absolutely not actively cause trouble. These frank words caused Charlotte to lower her guard. She introduced the man as Jordan. The reason for inviting Mitchell was that reporters frequently snuck into the yard to take photos, and she hoped he could chase them away. After speaking, Charlotte left Jordan to explain the situation. Jordan led Mitchell to the backyard, instructing him that everything here must be kept secret. Besides that, there were daily chores to be done. While talking, Jordan opened the garage door. Mitchell only took a glance and was stunned. Inside, it was filled with all kinds of luxury cars. Jordan casually told him these cars belonged to Charlotte's husband, but he was in Spain all year round and basically wouldn't come back. Before he finished speaking, a man drove a van into the yard. He was Charlotte's previous bodyguard, but he was fired for hoarding video cameras. This made Jordan angry. He punched the man down, warning him that if he dared reveal anything to reporters, he would sue him. At this point, the man didn't dare to be arrogant anymore and scrambled into his car to flee. Jordan looked at Mitchell and declared he could start work on Monday. But as soon as Mitchell got to the street, the man drove up to chase him, warning him not to steal his livelihood. Mitchell didn't say much, he just stated his name, which scared the man into driving away in fear. But the trouble wasn't over. As soon as Mitchell got home, a black police officer suddenly came to his door, questioning why he was at someone else's house. Then he mentioned that they would be focusing attention on Billy recently, hoping Mitchell would watch his mouth. How could Mitchell not hear the implication in the officer's words? But he didn't dare offend him, so he could only give the black officer a bill to temporarily send him away. When he met Billy again, Mitchell mentioned the officer's words, but Billy appeared not to care at all, bluntly saying that guy was just a paper tiger who bullied the weak. After speaking, he led Mitchell into a building to collect protection money. At the same time, Charlotte, wearing sunglasses, walked into a shop. She intended to buy some daily necessities, but her photos were plastered everywhere. The eyes of those around her also focused on her. This feeling made Charlotte feel like she had thorns in her back, and she could only leave in a hurry. In another turn of events, Mitchell returned home and suddenly discovered a haggard-looking man hiding under the stairs. This person introduced himself as the former owner of the apartment. He resentfully told Mitchell that he was originally a doctor but was forced by a gang to sell banned substances, resulting in exposure and police investigation, ultimately losing everything. But Mitchell was too lazy to listen to these words and warned the man to leave quickly, or his situation would become even more miserable. When night fell, Mitchell stayed home to make dinner for Bryony and advised her to start a normal life. But Bryony was not only ungrateful but also threw the food on the floor, warning Mitchell not to interfere in her business. This distressed Mitchell greatly. He intended to find Old Man Joe to vent his feelings, but when he reached the bridge, he found a policeman standing there. Mitchell's heart sank, realizing something had happened to Joe. He rushed to the hospital and learned from the doctor that Joe's condition was not optimistic, he likely wouldn't survive the next day. Looking at Joe gasping for breath on the hospital bed, Mitchell was both panicked and angry, asking him who exactly had done this. Unexpectedly, Joe helplessly said that even if he said it, what good would it do? Hearing this, Mitchell became even more angry, insisting he name the culprit. Seeing Mitchell's determined attitude, Joe finally mentioned being beaten by a blonde youth. The opponent had also taken the switchblade Mitchell had given him. Joe's voice grew weaker and then faded out completely. This saddened Mitchell deeply. He understood that if he hadn't taken that gun, the outcome might have been different. But it was too late to say anything now. Mitchell contacted Billy, asking him to help buy a cemetery plot. But Billy said cemetery land wasn't cheap. If Mitchell wanted money, he had to help collect debts. Reluctantly, Mitchell had to follow Billy to find a debtor. Unexpectedly, the debtor's brother was not easy to deal with. Seeing the situation go south, Billy quickly slipped away. By the time Mitchell reacted, 4 burly men had rushed in front of him. Not long after, Mitchell, covered in scars, limped back to the street, finally unable to hold on, and was admitted to the hospital. Fortunately, his physical constitution was good, so no bones or tendons were injured. A kind doctor gave Mitchell some painkillers to help him get through the difficult night. The next day, after recovering, Mitchell found Billy and questioned why he abandoned him and ran. Unexpectedly, Billy played the victim, emphasizing that he had reminded him from the start to run fast if there was trouble. Next, Billy suddenly mentioned that he had met Charlotte's former bodyguard and knew the garage was full of luxury cars. This news had spread everywhere. Billy wanted Mitchell to cooperate with him to pull off a big job. Hearing this, Mitchell flew into a rage, he didn't want to be thrown in prison again. Seeing Mitchell truly angry, Billy hurriedly laughed it off and took out a cemetery plot certificate, saying his boss had arranged everything. Hearing this, Mitchell felt mixed emotions. He knew well that to get this plot, there was a price to pay. But right now, the most urgent thing was to let old man Joe rest in peace. In the end, Mitchell accepted the help from Billy's boss. He held a funeral for Joe at the cemetery. During the ceremony, Bryony suddenly took out a cigarette. The doctor standing nearby hurriedly helped light it for her. Bryony looked satisfied and used her foot to tease the doctor. Seeing this, Mitchell was both angry and amused. Unexpectedly, the doctor was truly smitten. He actively approached Bryony and told Mitchell that he was divorced, hoping to be with her. Mitchell looked awkward, intending to remind the doctor that Bryony had a loose lifestyle, but the doctor cut him off, emphasizing he didn't care. Truly, words can't persuade a man seeking his doom. Mitchell didn't bother saying much more, only warning him that good people don't necessarily get rewarded. After burying Joe, next was revenge. Mitchell found a friend in the underworld, asking him to investigate the blonde youth Joe had mentioned. But before he finished speaking, the man next to him suddenly laughed loudly, suggesting Joe's death was somewhat dramatic. That ear-piercing laughter made Mitchell's blood boil. He smashed the man's head into a glass. The friend immediately panicked and repeatedly promised to help him search. The next day was Monday. Mitchell went to Jordan early in the morning to officially start his bodyguard job. While he was smoking in the yard, Charlotte walked over with a cigarette, talking about her unhappy family. But before she finished, a sharp shutter sound rang out from above. 2 paparazzi were standing on the roof of the opposite building taking sneak shots. Charlotte was both scared and angry but could only helplessly hide inside. Mitchell also realized the seriousness of the problem and suggested Jordan increase security around the house, but Jordan pushed this task onto him. To make matters worse, when he got off work that evening, Mitchell was blocked by a Rolls-Royce. Billy was standing by the car with an awkward expression. 2 bodyguards stepped out. Billy's boss, Gant, finally appeared. He greatly appreciated Mitchell's abilities and wanted to invite him to work for him, mentioning he would prepare a surprise for him in 2 days. The next day, as soon as Mitchell arrived at Charlotte's house, Jordan happily announced that Charlotte's husband had died in a car accident in Spain. Now, Mitchell needed to take Charlotte out to unwind. The car rushed out of the paparazzi's encirclement, speeding down the road. Charlotte could finally relax. She leaned toward the passenger seat, asking Mitchell to light a cigarette, and asked him what his dream was. Unexpectedly, Mitchell just wanted food to eat and a bed to sleep in. This made Charlotte feel both amused and helpless, feeling Mitchell was a bit too simple. The 2 drove to a countryside estate. Mitchell mustered the courage to say he hoped Charlotte could bravely be herself and not care too much about others' eyes. He also said if he were in her shoes, he would choose to go to Los Angeles, USA, to develop her career. At sunset, the 2 went outside to enjoy the warm twilight. Unexpectedly, the paparazzi had carried cameras into the wheat field. At the same time, Gant found the black policeman who had threatened Mitchell, warning that Mitchell was now his man. If he dared play tricks on Mitchell again, he would be thrown into the river to feed the fish. The black policeman was so scared he didn't dare breathe loudly. He hurriedly handed over the money he took from Mitchell to Gant and ran away with his tail between his legs. When night fell, Charlotte and Mitchell chatted in the house. She said her acting career wasn't very smooth, she could only rely on her looks to play flower vase roles. Such a life caused her to nearly break down, deciding to go home and hide for a while. Unexpectedly, she had been hiding until now. But Mitchell heard the clear fear in her voice and intended to ask what Charlotte was afraid of. Unexpectedly, Charlotte's expression changed slightly, and she stood up to end the topic. The next day, Jordan came to the estate to probe, asking Mitchell if anything happened with Charlotte. This insulting question annoyed Mitchell. Jordan didn't continue, only telling Mitchell the real reason Charlotte was hiding at home was that she had been assaulted in Italy. As a famous star, for the sake of her reputation, Charlotte couldn't speak up or report to the police. At this moment, Mitchell finally understood the cause of Charlotte's sadness. He was both surprised and angry, hurriedly asking what happened to that guy in the end. Hearing this, Jordan revealed a smug look, saying the man drank strong liquor mixed with a large amount of sleeping pills and was finally found dead in his car. Clearly, this was Jordan's work. Returning from the countryside, Mitchell was taken by Billy to a construction site. Gant and the others were waiting there. Hanging on a scaffold was a terrified-looking man. Mitchell immediately understood Gant wanted to exact revenge for him, but that man was clearly not the one who killed Joe. Learning they caught the wrong person, Gant was momentarily furious. But he didn't release the man. Instead, he approached him, recounting that in his youth he was very weak, even lending his girlfriend to a love rival. The man stared blankly, not understanding what Gant meant. Unexpectedly, Gant suddenly pulled out a gun and shot him dead. Then, Gant pointed at Mitchell, saying he had become an accomplice in this murder and shouldn't dream of escaping. Mitchell was purple with rage, realizing only now that he had fallen into a trap. But Gant ignored him and used the pistol to smash Billy's face, ordering him to dispose of the body. Mitchell couldn't endure it anymore, angrily criticizing Gant's despicable methods. Gant didn't yield either, pressing the gun to Mitchell's head, emphasizing that he was the boss. Mitchell understood he couldn't escape the man, so he could only leave, swallowing his anger. Luckily, he still had other people to vent on. The next day, while Mitchell was smoking in the yard, he suddenly heard paparazzi asking about the relationship between him and Charlotte. Mitchell laughed in anger. Waiting for the two men to come downstairs, he suddenly rushed out, knocking them unconscious in the blink of an eye. But Gant didn't give up on recruiting Mitchell. That night, he invited Mitchell to a restaurant, promising that as long as he joined the gang, he could name any condition. Then, he said he had investigated and found that the teenager who killed Joe was a member of a football team. Having said that, Gant took out photos secretly taken of Mitchell and Charlotte at the estate, trying to use blackmail and bribery to force him to compromise. But he didn't know that doing so only made Mitchell despise him more. Mitchell bluntly said that if he returned to the underworld, the first person he would kill would be Gant. As he spoke, he stood up, left money for the meal, and walked away, not wanting anything to do with him. Mitchell understood Gant wouldn't let it go easily. He hurriedly went home, packed his things, and fled the apartment that very night. He gave a roll of cash to Jordan, deciding to rent the attic above. But the previous owner wasn't so lucky. He had just intended to return to the house to get his things when he was caught by Gant coming for revenge. Seeing two assassins holding curved knives, his heart felt like it would drop out. Gant recounted how, as a child, he went to the beach with his mother's lover but was taken advantage of and assaulted by him. Clearly, he would not let the homeowner survive. At the same time, Mitchell once again sought out his underworld friend. Based on the information Gant provided, he finally learned the whereabouts of the blonde teenager. Taking advantage of the dark, Mitchell found the teenager listening to music. He raised his gun, preparing to pull the trigger. But at that very moment, he remembered Joe's words, "What is the point of revenge?" After all, the opponent was just a child. Moreover, he had decided to wash his hands of this life. In the end, Mitchell felt compassion and watched helplessly as the teenager walked away. In a depressed mood, Mitchell returned to the attic and found Charlotte waiting there. At this moment, both could not suppress the vibrations in their hearts. Naturally, they embraced and kissed. After the passion passed, Mitchell walked out the door and suddenly discovered Billy driving slowly toward him. Terrified, he snatched Billy's gun, questioning what exactly he meant. Billy felt very wronged, emphasizing that he came only to remind Mitchell that Gant had decided to take revenge on him. But Mitchell couldn't stay silent anymore. He brought up the incident 3 years ago. Billy had provoked a rival gang while working for Gant. Mitchell had stepped in to resolve it for Billy and accidentally beat a man to death. The result was that Billy not only didn't take responsibility but also vanished into thin air. These words left Billy speechless. After all, he had wronged Mitchell. He had to say that Gant wanted the luxury car and the famous painting in Charlotte's house, hoping Mitchell could be prepared. At the same time, he told him Gant would send his trusted aide to strike next time. This made Mitchell realize the situation had begun to spiral out of control. He gave Billy's pistol to Jordan for protection. But just as he returned to the attic, he suddenly discovered a photo of him and Charlotte placed on the floor. Clearly, this was a warning from Gant. Mitchell couldn't hold back anymore. Borrowing Jordan's Rolls-Royce, he decided to give Gant a taste of his own medicine. He found Billy and beat him down with a baton, but learned that Gant had set his sights on Bryony. This made Mitchell both worried and angry. He hurriedly called his sister to a restaurant. The result, he found her cheating on the doctor with another lover behind his back. But Mitchell was too tired to manage these things. He took out a train ticket to Paris, instructing Bryony to go hide for a while. When he returned to Charlotte's house, she told Mitchell she had found work in Los Angeles and would leave London tomorrow. Mitchell was overjoyed to hear this, promising that once he settled everything, he would go to America with her. However, the next evening, Jordan discovered Billy's body in the yard. Rage exploded. Mitchell immediately planned revenge with Jordan. He found Gant's trusted aide in a nightclub. The man directly admitted he killed Billy. Relying on his relationship with Gant, he thought Mitchell wouldn't dare act and arrogantly got into the car with him. Unexpectedly, Mitchell smashed his elbow with a heavy blow. Jordan, sitting in the back, took the opportunity to tighten a rope, cutting the man's throat in an instant. The two drove into the wheat field under the cover of night and threw the man's body into the water. His accomplice was scared witless, swallowing tears and begging continuously, but was still shot dead by Mitchell. But Mitchell didn't expect that Bryony hadn't left yet. At this moment, she was playing games with the doctor at home. Just as they were in high spirits, a knock suddenly sounded. Bryony unsuspectingly went to open the door. But in the next instant, Gant appeared with a hammer in his hand. Hair and Bryony's blood were stuck to it. The death of his sister completely caused Mitchell to lose his reason. Alone, he went to Gant's house, knocked Gant's wife unconscious, and, taking advantage of a lapse in the bodyguard's attention outside, sneaked in to find Gant lying in bed. Gant was stunned, not expecting Mitchell could break into his bedroom so easily. He hurriedly said there was $60,000 in the house and wanted to use this money to buy his life. But Mitchell stopped Gant from opening the box because he knew well there was definitely a gun inside. Mitchell ordered Gant to lie on the bed, then suddenly mentioned he once wrote a love letter to a girl, but she passed it to another boy. Gant felt it was ridiculous and didn't understand what this had to do with him. But when he looked up, Mitchell pulled the trigger. Mitchell opened the box, took the money inside, placed the gun next to Gant's wife, and quietly escaped. At the same time, the black policeman found Jordan, intending to take advantage of the chaos to extort a sum from him. Unexpectedly, Jordan pulled out a pistol and shot him dead right at the corner of the basement stairs. Once everything was done, Mitchell dismantled the gun, packed his things, and wanted to go find Charlotte. But just as he stepped down the stairs, he was suddenly stabbed wildly in the waist with a switchblade by the blonde teenager who killed Old Man Joe. It turned out the teen knew Mitchell was always investigating him and thought he wanted revenge, so he took the opportunity to strike first. Feeling the tearing pain, Mitchell only found it all ironic. He never expected that he would ultimately die by the blade of Billy's switchblade. And just as Mitchell went to heaven, Charlotte arrived in magnificent Los Angeles. Her lawyer immediately issued a statement emphasizing she knew absolutely nothing about the events. But what Charlotte thought, no one knew. In the middle of the golden wheat field, Jordan was sitting quietly on a rock. He sensed two policemen approaching from behind. He raised the pistol beside him. Only a few gunshots, bang, 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 were heard. Everything completely sank into the past. London Boulevard is a crime film released in 2010. If rated on a 5-star scale, I think the lead role deserves 4 stars. The styling of Colin Farrell, the lead actor, is both handsome and a bit rugged, which can be said to be a perfect fit for Mitchell, a man who rolls in the streets but possesses a sense of righteousness. In my opinion, he almost carried the whole movie by himself. Regarding the plot, I rate it 3 stars. In general, the movie has a strong British style, the storytelling is jumpy and the rhythm is light, bringing viewers a different experience. What made me unable to stop laughing the most in the movie was that Gant really liked to tell a segment of his past that wasn't worth mentioning before taking action. And when Mitchell dealt with him, he also told a story of his own. The result was that Gant listened and was bewildered. This point is clearly satirizing scenes where characters posture pointlessly in some movies. At the same time, the movie has a deliberately hidden detail. From start to finish, Jordan's identity is never clearly stated. What do you think is the relationship between him and Charlotte? Please leave a comment to discuss. The value of a movie lies in its reputation, and the value of a movie review lies in the feeling. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching. How do you find this movie? Please comment below.